Thanks a lot for coming in.
Good morning. Happy to be here.
Something about this community appeals to you?
This is a wonderful place to live.
Or Kelowna now, this is Camp Mulgat. And we're joined by Roo Phelps. Roo, thanks for coming in. So for those people who aren't aware of your radio career, that's what you're known by the most people for. So tell me about what you were doing, prior to what we then read about in your book.
Yeah, so I'm a fourth generation broadcaster. I grew up in a family that owned and operated a chain of radio stations on Vancouver Island. So since 1999, I've worked full-time, almost the last 20 years on the air. And then in 2012, I came to Kelowna and was co-hosting the morning show here, as well as a nationally syndicated radio show that ran in 52 markets across the country.
Wow.
Yeah, and then in May, I made the decision to leave to try and see what else I could be in the world.
Just left that behind.
Yeah, terrifying, absolutely terrifying. But you do something so long, I just needed to know, is there other things I can do? Am I capable of more or different?
Right. So that was sort of a thinking outside the box thing to do.
Yeah.
A lot of people said, whoa, you gave that up.
I think it was pretty shocking for a lot of people, my family included, when I made the decision to go. It was really a scary time, but It was the right thing to do.
So another thinking outside the box thing was that, lots of people have breakups. Mm-hmm. You had sounds like a pretty intense 6-month relationship with a guy, living, he had children that you were bonding with, living together, the whole thing was quite entrenched, and then it ended, and what was outside the box was you decided to write a book about it.
Yeah, so originally when I had left radio, I did start writing a book, but it was a fiction novel. And I was struggling, I was grappling with it, and it was just a grind every step of the way. I couldn't seem to make progress. And then when the breakup happened, this book just poured out of me. I don't think I could have not written it if I tried.
Okay, so 11 weeks. Mm-hmm. And as I started to read this book, it seems like you have some kind of photographic memory of what happened each day, where you were, who you talked to, how the conversation went.
Yeah, I think that's because I wrote the book in real time, which is why I felt it was so important to include that in the subtitle, that it's the real-time chronicling of a breakup. This isn't something that I'm looking back on years later. It's something that I would live each day of those 11 weeks, come home and write about the day. And so it is literally the actual experience of that period of time in my life.
So you were keeping a detailed diary that then you would actually translate into what would be readable copy?
Yeah, if the days got busy, I'd make notes about, okay, I had coffee with this person, and then I went to that store, and then I talked on the phone to my dad, and then at the end of the night, I would write everything out in full. And like each day is essentially a chapter, and so I wrote the chapter on the day that it happened.
Did that feel therapeutic as you went through it?
Incredibly cathartic, but sad. There was times when I would sit at my laptop and write it and just cry and cry and cry, but I think that's what I needed to do to just get it out.
Wow. I just wonder though, see, if you're writing what happens every day, and whatever you do is going to wind up in the book, did that change your behavior? Like, were you behaving the way you would want to in a book?
Yeah, I think the thing with me is I have a propensity to just be okay with who I am and what I am and how I am, and I don't really have a lot to hide. And in my opinion, I'm not actually that super interesting. So there wasn't anything I felt like I needed to alter or adapt or be aware of. There's a couple things in the book that are not my proudest moments, or that I was sitting there going, oh gosh, okay, your mom and your dad are gonna read about this, but
yeah. So it's honest, right? You put things in there that are the real unvarnished you, and not all of it is everything you wished that you were.
Yeah, I would like to be a better person than I am in the book, but that's who I am.
Yeah. So were you, along the way, were you telling the people in your life, hey, I'm documenting my life right now?
Yeah, fortunately for me, I have a very, very, very small, close circle of friends, and they all knew what I was doing, and I'm incredibly lucky that every single friend that's included in the book gave me their permission and their trust to write my depictions of them and what I felt our relationship was. And that's actually a really special thing. Like it's really huge that they trusted me to do that, because for me to write about myself and put my own vulnerabilities is one thing, but to put other people's lives out there, that's a huge show of friendship and trust and support.
One line that I wrote down out of the book that I think really kind of typifies, that very sad level of self-doubt that a person might get after a breakup, was this one. You said, and I'm interrupting a sentence, but to know that someone looked at you and decided life is better without her. That's a punch in the gut to take, isn't it?
Yeah. And I think unfortunately that's what any breakup or end of a relationship or end of a marriage is a person deciding ultimately, I no longer want you in my life. And what does that mean if not, I feel my life will be better without you in it? Right. And that's really the state of mind that I was in. I felt humiliated and embarrassed and sad and frustrated with myself that I had become the kind of person again since the end of my marriage that someone didn't want anymore.
You felt not valued. So the premise of the book, 11 weeks, is how long, I guess, some experts said it should take a person to recover from a breakup?
Yeah, the psychologists say about 11 weeks to heal from a breakup, or to at least view the relationship in a positive light and to be able to move on from it.
So did that prove true? Did you feel that there was something that had occurred after 11 weeks that was in any way a closure on that state?
I think so. The end of the book is less climatic than I would have liked. I wanted some big Hollywood ending. I wanted the Wes character to come back and say, let's try this again. Or I wanted to meet someone new and we have that moment where we exchange glances and you think, oh, there's hope for this lady, like she's gonna find somebody. But that's not reality. That's not what happened. The end of the book was just another day of the 11 weeks. And I think for most people, that's all it is just living days over and over and over and over again and just doing time essentially until something feels different and you feel better.
But you do feel different at the end of it. There's sort of a level of acceptance that you get to.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what it was. It was just sort of this piece of the idea that like, I can't look at this any further. I've examined everything there is to examine about this. I've thought as hard about what I did wrong or could have done different, or about love and relationships and what makes people happy and where meaning comes from in my life. And there's just like no stone left unturned now. So I need to stop thinking about it.
So after, I think it's such a rare thing that someone would take such a close look at their own life. Is there a conclusion that you sort of reached after that a little gem of wisdom that you could pass on to someone who might be watching this interview who's going through a breakup of their own?
Yeah, I'm a big Jordan B. Peterson fan. He's written a book called 12 Rules for Life, and he has a quote that I read really early on in the book where he talks about how writing is the most demanding form of thinking. Because when you're writing something down, you have to attribute meaning to it. You have to examine it. You have to try and figure out, what did that interaction mean? And so base minimum, if there's something going on in your life, find an outlet. For me, it happens to be the book and the writing, but for other people that can be music, that can be sports, but find things that will force you to be in the moment and be with yourself and address the discomfort, because the worst thing you can do is ignore it, because otherwise I go and I get in some new relationship and I'm still crying about this guy, right?
Okay, but a lot of things people could occupy themselves doing are so apart from their life. If it's a sport or art or something, but yours was a self-examination.
Yeah.
So would you recommend that people, even if they're not going to say write a book, but keeping a diary at that phase, do you think that was helpful?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I think being brutally honest with yourself and the idea that like, am I living a life that I'm okay enough to write a book about? Like really, if I had to be honest about everything, what's my own behavior like? What did I contribute to this situation? How do I really feel about things? And if I'd be too humiliated to put it out there, or if I can't speak the truth, or I wouldn't tell that, or I wouldn't let my family read it, then like, what kind of life am I actually living? So there's something to be said for examining yourself in a way where you force yourself to be very, very honest with who you think you are, both the good and the bad.
Right. So the book is now available. Do you think, are people going to buy it?
Yeah, you know what's incredible? So it's on Amazon now, and within less than a week of being for sale, it's #1 bestseller in divorce, #1 bestseller in love, sex, and relationships, #1 bestseller in humor, marriage, and relationships. There's 3 or 4 different categories. It's jumped to the #1 best spot, and it peaked at number 36 on the hot bestsellers list or hot new releases list. So it's doing incredibly well, better than I could have ever imagined or anticipated. So,
amazing.
yeah, it's very exciting.
There's the happy ending. Too bad that can't be in the book.
I know, right?
Maybe you got to do a revised edition.
Yeah, add it in. By the way, this book rocked.
No, that's so great. The gem of wisdom, I guess, I think really it's a compilation. So someone should read the book.
Yes.
It's the gems of wisdom.
Yeah, buy the book. It'll hopefully help you. Or at least, even if it doesn't help you, it'll make you feel better about yourself. Just be like, at least I'm not as bad off as that girl was.
No. And thank you so much for coming in and sharing with us.
Thank you for having me.
Roo Phelps. And thank you for watching Kelowna Now.